Hello, namaste. Imagine falling into you in the middle of the woods here in Savannah, Georgia. Such a pleasure to meet here on Thursday, June 16th, 2016. Undoubtedly a time that any of us human beings walking the globe, it is amazing. This is an amazing time. This is like electroshock therapy time. This is like nowhere to go, nowhere to hide time. So hello, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you all. And, I'm an observer, I'm an astrologer, so we're going to talk about some cycles. We're going to talk about some very interesting changes that we are experiencing, both on the individual and the collective sphere, as we have a very potent full moon in Sagittarius coming up on Monday, June 20th, 7 a.m. here on the East Coast. That's going to be a little later in the afternoon in England and Europe, pretty early in the morning on the West Coast of the United States. And this full moon in Sagittarius, this is very much encapsulating the energy of this month, and it's also, in many respects, encapsulating this year of 2016. This is a potent time. This is a time where we're going to look back and remember the events, the transformations that are going on these days, as there's a lot of stuff that is lining up to make this moon quite potent. And so let's talk about it. Well, last Sunday, I believe this was the 12th, we had Mercury move into Gemini. Okay. And so where have we been? As you know, before then, Mercury was in Taurus, opposite to Mars. Then earlier this week, we had Venus square to Chiron, Sun square to Chiron. It has not been an easy time. This is not an easy time, particularly for those of us who have a lot of planets in the signs of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And we do want to be looking at our natal charts between 5 and 15 degrees of those mutable signs, because this is where we have the mutable grand cross that's going on. It was activated 2 weeks ago with the new moon in Gemini, and it's being activated again at the time of this full moon, which is at 29 degrees Sagittarius. And I'm going to try, my personal goal for this reading is to not go off the deep end, because that's the energy that we're experiencing. Is it's very easy to go off the deep end. It's very easy to get swept away with paranoia, with philosophy, with the left versus the right, good guys versus bad guys, nation versus nation, political, philosophical, religious opinions, and banter. Okay, there is an explosion of this energy going on with this Sag full moon in the final degree of Sagittarius, but that's not all. There's actually quite a few things lining up with this full moon in Sag. Mercury is going to be exactly opposite to Saturn, once again activating this mutable grand cross. Jupiter, which is square to Saturn, square to Mercury, opposite to Neptune, is going to be exactly passing the moon's north node around the time of this full moon. And this approaching weekend, June 18th, Saturn is exactly square to Neptune, the second of 3 squares that are ongoing throughout 2016. And so this Saturn Square Neptune, this is a closing square. This is a dissolving, a crumbling, a falling apart. We're going to talk about the falling apart of the old and the exposing of what lies underneath. And this is also Neptune just having turned retrograde this last Tuesday, June 14th. Now, whenever Neptune is changing direction, this is where we feel this dreamlike fog and this uncertainty. And with the Saturn Square Neptune, it's more like a smog than a fog. It's more pollution, I guess. And the other thing is Neptune turning retrograde. This is when things get exposed. Neptune is like the veil. He's the trickster. He's this ultimate deceiver, and he's also love and spirituality, very, very tricky, misunderstood symbol of God. Unconditional love, Neptune. When Neptune turns retrograde, it's like the veil is parted and the smoke machines run out of juice. And suddenly we start to see the little cogs and the bits and pieces that are running the show. It's like the Wizard of Oz You know, he's not the giant face being projected. He's this little man, you know, running the machine behind there. This is what is majorly going on with this full moon in Sag, is the ripping away of veils, the taking down of illusions, of distractions. And so what can we say about this time? This is a critical time energetically. This is a time where people go off the deep end, people lose control, people do go on shooting sprees, people do have to run into total insanity. And here's why. It's as if we have two choices here, and this is Saturn stuff. Saturn is, you know, been very powerful in Sagittarius, saying this is what we need to look at. You can't escape reality right now. Reality is not preventing us to scurry under any rocks or get behind any sheets or coverings. No, 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 no. This is reality time. And that means two choices, because we always have free will. We do always have free will, even when it comes down to Saturn. Here's reality, you can't avoid it. Well, we do have a choice here. And that choice is that we can either bite the bullet, we can see what we need to see, which is, once again, these mechanisms, the little bits and pieces beneath the surface. It gets complicated. And that's what we're going to majorly be talking about today, is that life is complicated. It's not a black and white, superficial fantasy storytale. Storytale. This is not life. Actual reality and actual existence requires our constant investigation and work in order to better and better comprehend it, and we can't settle for less. So we have a choice here. The choice is we either become even more delusional, even more crazy, even more in denial than we've ever been before, which is where people go off the deep end. Hallucinations, delusions of grandeur. I cannot accept myself being other than this image I have constructed for myself. This is the narcissistic personality disorder. I'm only good. I'm only God. I only do exactly what the commandments tell me to do. There can't be anything more complicated than that. Well, it is more complicated than that. So our other option, which I am encouraging us, is to, one step after the next, move forward into where? The light. This is the light. This is the blinding light of awareness. People make enlightenment and awareness into this beautiful thing, and it's all gumdrops and clouds, and you see the tree, and everything is peaceful. There's a lot of rites of passage that goes with our developing awareness. Okay, we have to become aware of more and more and more than what meets the eye, than what goes beyond our comfort zone, that what goes beyond our mind's comprehension of what is nice and simple and was laid out and was understood, and this is who I am, this is my role, this is my job, this is my career, this is my religion, this is my philosophy, this is my government, this is my culture. We all have this stuff very nicely laid out. And the light of awareness is shining into the corners, into the nether regions, into the basements, into the catacombs. And all of the cobwebs and all of the dust and everything that's been swept under the rug is being revealed. And this is the process of enlightenment, which means our awareness is constantly expanding, is happening. And this is very important for us to understand, is as we become more aware of a situation that is more real, that is more complicated, it gives us less opportunity to cop out, to scapegoat, to run away and do the easy thing and invent an enemy and blame it all on them. That's what this full moon is very much about. It is about seeing the patterns of our own philosophical perspective construct. This is ontology. Our ontology is the philosophy, the mental framework which we use to construct and understand our reality. And in many, many respects, our ontology does create our reality. This is all, gung-ho, New Age stuff. Oh, your perspective creates your reality. What you think about manifests, and what you believe comes into reality, etc. And that's very true on many levels. You know, there is the whole glass is half empty, glass is half full. If you're seeing it as half empty, you're going to have a much harder time getting up in the morning because you're exhausted, because you're negative. Very, very true. And yet, when the light of awareness is growing and growing and growing inside of you and inside of the collective, well, it makes that whole shifting perspective thing a little bit more troubling and difficult. Because it's not always so easy to just cop out and use this simple, trick is basically what we do to make ourselves feel comfortable in our lives and where we are and what's going on. And what happens when we start seeing the stuff that's just like, oh, you know what? I'm trying real hard to see this glass is half full, but you know what? This is not looking like anything besides a whole bunch of bullshit. What do we do then? Well, we do have to be where we are. We do have to see the bullshit, and then we can maybe move on to the half is glass full and figure out the mental tricks to make our job easier, the work ahead of us easier, the process of becoming self-aware easier, because it's not just a clear and easy road. It is bumpy. There are challenges here. And so let's talk about this in the astrology. Jupiter is passing over the moon's north node at the same time as this full moon. And this is the third and final time Jupiter is passing this moon's north node. Jupiter has remained with the moon's north node through the first third of this year, and then Jupiter kind of, moved back to retrograde, and now he's coming back and passing this moon's north node for a third and final time for 12 years, until he comes back around again. Jupiter on the moon's north node is this light of awareness that is illuminating our situation, illuminating the collective consciousness, and it's in the sign of Virgo. North node in Virgo, this year of 2016, being called a year of adjustment, of purification, of rectification. This is about purifying, which means seeing what's not perfect quite yet, and doing the little adjustments in order to improve our situation one baby step after the next. And Virgo can be a difficult sign to work with because Virgo is one of these signs ruled by Mercury, our mind. It has to do with awareness. Highly Virgo signatures are very aware people, and so they get called hypersensitive and puritanical because everything's got to be in a particular way. I wonder why. Because we're so aware of our bodies and what's going on, everything has to be in the right way to make things flow as smoothly as possible. That's what we need at this time. The moon's north node is what we need. It's where evolution is going. Jupiter is holding open the door with this illumination, with this enlightenment. Look at this stuff. It's not all perfect. It's not all pure. It's not all clean. We don't have our acts all together. And we have to know this. We have to know this if we want to move forward. On the moon's south node is Neptune. Just turned retrograde. He's going to be hanging out around 10 degrees for months and months to come. The moon's south node is going to be passing Neptune for months and months to come. What is being brought up is our addictions, our bad habits, our escapisms via delusion. And this happens by taking our consciousness out of the reality which we are and misplacing it somewhere else. Into computer land, into escapist land. I mean, this can be communes, this can be churches, this can be, there's many, many ways that we can escape, and some of them look healthier than others. And it doesn't ultimately matter. It matters what's at the essence. Are you using this as a vehicle of escape? This is what we call coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms, it's really tough to be really aware right now to see everything that's not quite perfect and all the work that still has yet to be done. And this is uncomfortable. This is uncomfortable. This is deeply disturbing. It's disturbing for people to wake up to a truth that's not really a glass half full type of truth. It's more like, we were trying to see the glass as half full, and you know what? It's genuinely, no, it's not quite like that. I mean, we have Saturn square to Neptune going on exact this week. Saturn square to Neptune is what? Authoritative paranoia. Paranoia about the government, paranoia about the mainstream media, paranoia about religious structures and collective beliefs is Saturn square Neptune. Any Saturn-Neptune aspect has to do with collective beliefs, as well as spiritual work. And this is a time where we are all being called to do spiritual work. This is a time where we are being challenged in our faith, so that way we can do the work on our faith necessary for our faith to become even stronger than before. This is the time for us to be working on our insecurities, working on our guilt, working on our shame, working on our bad habits, working on all of this negative, shadowy, ooey gooey, it's complicated so let's not look at it, it's complicated so let's not look at it, reality. So let's talk about this Saturn square Neptune, because this is a long-term cycle. The Saturn-Neptune cycle is a 36-year cycle. And this is the closing square, which means, guess what? This is when we start to see the ending of this cycle. It starts dissolving, it starts falling apart, as we start to prepare the next birth of the next cycle, which is going to be coming up in 2026. So we're looking back the last 27 years, back to 1989. This entire cycle has to do with spiritual beliefs and authoritative beliefs, government beliefs. You know, how do we see? What is our philosophy? What motivates us as nations, as structures, as cultures? So going back to 1989, this was the falling of the Soviet Union. This was the crumbling of the Berlin Wall, which is very symbolic because Saturn is the wall and Neptune is dissolving. So 1989, this wall dissolves. We end one war, nationally, globally, and there is also seeds of another type of war, another type of philosophical warfare being planted. Speed up the clock to the first Saturn-Neptune square, which is happening in 1998. Saturn's in Taurus, Neptune's now in Aquarius. There's this challenge of money, there's this challenge of, and once again, there's always authoritative paranoia going on, particularly with these harsh aspects, these hard aspects between Saturn and Neptune. 1989, what's going on? President Bill Clinton is having an affair. Mr. Authority, Mr. Father, Mr. President is impeached. Who do we trust? Who is our leaders? What's going on in the Oval Office? Are these the people that are managing our country? What are their goals? What are their motivations? That was the last Saturn-Neptune square in history. Bill Clinton. Now we've got his wife running for president. This stuff is mind-blowing. Let's move up the clock to 2007, 2008. This is when we have the Neptune-Saturn opposition. We see the manifestation of the seeds that were planted in 1989, and now we have a full-blown war on terror. George Bush is in office. It's all about what? Declaring war on other countries that are seen as what? Terrorists. Literally. Bad guys. Our country is the good guy. All these other countries are the bad guys. That's the Saturn-Neptune cycle that we've been in. And now, 2016, we're in the closing square. This is when this shit starts to fall apart. And this presidential election is just so in our faces. This is Saturn and Sagittarius. Saturn and Sagittarius is, wherever Saturn's transiting, is showing us the shadow of this sign. There's work to be done here. You need to see what's going on. What is Sagittarius? Philosophy, perspective, ontology, religion, and governments. There's a lot of scrutiny on governments. All of the major candidates running for president are running under some type of campaign that the government is messed up. The mainstream media is messed up. I've never in my life seen the collective so aware at how biased the mainstream media is, at how rigged and how set up and how it's just super, super transparent to us, isn't it? And I'm not going to get all political and say who to vote for, who to not, because it goes way, way deeper than all of this stuff. And that's kind of my own toe that I'm going to stick in the water and my own opinion that I'm going to put out there. That being said, this is a time where opinions and political debates and fighting is really depleting and dragging people down, and it's all, childish fighting and just wasting everybody's time. So I'm not really trying to start any fights, but considering who this demographic goes out there, I'm just going to say that a whole part of this full moon and the light being shown on reality is, guess what? It's never as black and white as we've been led to believe. Which means that what? It's like it's all over the collective and all over the mainstream media. It's, the Illuminati and false flag attacks, and this presidential candidate's a demon, and this one's a demon, and everybody's controlled, and everybody's manipulated by demons and bad guys. What is this collective philosophy? It is blaming and it is scapegoating ulterior forces that are out there to get us. And this full moon is about blowing that bullshit out of the water, because that's not how life works. Okay, we're all afraid of this Illuminati that's going to take us over and possess us and controls everything. We're giving too much credit to a situation that is a lot more complicated than that. Okay? Think about it this way. We're blaming Iraq as the enemies. We're blaming these people as the enemies. We blame the Illuminati as the enemies. These are families of people that have had generations born inside these families. You get raised up to believe a particular philosophy, a particular religion, and then you get scapegoated as being the devil for holding those particular philosophies or religions. It's not that simple. You want to know the hard bullet that it is? The reality of the situation is that it's not ulterior motives that are responsible for this bullshit and this mess that we are in. Who is responsible for this bullshit and this mess that we are in is human beings. Humans. Like me and you. Just like me and you. No different from me and you. And this is what everybody does. Everybody says, oh, but Tim, there's darkness out there. There's demons. There's hell. I'm not saying that there's not. Trust me, I'm not one of those people saying that consciousness can't do some of the most far out things you could possibly conceive. And that goes in a very wide spectrum in both ways forever. Okay? That's consciousness. And human beings are the operators of consciousness. We have choices. Okay? And it's not bad guys or evil people that are forcing us to make these choices. We have choices to make. And our choices determine the outcomes of our future. Our choices determines where we go in the future. It's not so black and white as having an angel perched on one side and the devil's perched on the other side, and so we're warring with each other. Oh, fight the bad guys. Fight the Illuminati. Fight the terrorists. Fight the Mexicans, fight the Muslims. I mean, can we not see the collective paranoia that just can't own up to the situation that we're actually in? We are afraid. We are uncomfortable with the fact that we are the only people that are going to fix this situation, and it's not going to happen by blaming, chopping off the heads of, and damning others. We always want to do this. This situation is dark and scary because of this bad person. This situation is dark and scary because something bad happened. This is the manipulation. Is we're being manipulated into giving our power away to ulterior forces when there aren't any, really. Not any that are different from the consciousness that already inhabits your body. There's not going to be anything that breaks into your house in the middle of the night and possesses you. So we need to take ownership of all the light that is being showed upon our shadows, collectively and individually. And how are we going to sufficiently move forward and not be dragged down by despair, by negativity? And by the way, I mean no way to berate all of you that are experiencing the negativity, the pain. I'm not saying, oh, you're not being strong enough. No. I totally empathize. This is particularly, the Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Pisces people. These are the philosophers, the spiritual devoters, the poets, the singers, the aspirants. This year is when we feel disconnected from God, from our inspiration, and we're just kind of like swimming in this quagmire of dark and scary, complicated time and karma and limitations. Oh, darn it. I was hoping I could just, sing my song and clap my hands together and everybody would just join in and sing my song and clap their hands together and we'd all be blissed out by the end of the day. I mean, seriously, I've already been there and tried that. And it's not working like that. We've got to kind of toe the line a little bit, I think. And we do that by how? Well, it's forgiveness. Forgiveness of self and others. Forgiveness through comprehending the human condition. Comprehending the human condition enough through such profound empathy that you can understand how such souls can make such miserable choices. If you go through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, if you're raised to have beliefs that fill you with hatred, that fill you with the need to be powerful and dominant, so, we can't really judge that. That is consciousness. That's the human condition. And so it's not saying that's okay and everything is allowed and everything should be just a free-for-all and, do whatever you want, go off on a killing spree. No. But should we not have empathy for those that do? And if we have empathy for those that do, what kind of healing do these people need? More or less love? More or less scapegoating? More or less blame? I have a science experiment that I don't know if it'll ever get tested out. I don't think it ever has. But people love to, sociopaths. Oh, that consciousness, sociopaths. You just got to lock them away. Those are evil, demonic people. They have no empathy. Well, yeah, I'm not arguing that consciousness can go really far down that pole, down that spectrum of what is possible. Oh yeah, it's truly frightening, truly. And yet, I would love to see this science experiment done. Sociopath commits a murder of 100 people. Instead of hanging them up and making an example out of them, which is what they want, let's surround them by the world's most profound spiritual teachers and lovers who give nothing but their utmost love and attention to this person 24 hours a day. They're surrounded by 8 of the most loving, unbelievably loving and attractive people in the world. I'm talking about our Amachis, our Jesus Christ, our saints out there. We get them all together and they're just embracing and loving this person day after day after day. Let's see what happens to consciousness when we treat things that way. We need to be very forgiving on ourselves and other people if we want to improve the situation at hand. And if we want to improve the situation at hand, we can't keep blaming other people as being bad, as being unrepairable, as being, just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. Oh yeah, they're disgusting. They made the wrong choice. Donald Trump, demon, It's easy. It's easy to do that. I understand, Donald Trump was born on a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. This is Saturn in Sagittarius. We've got to look at this stuff. Sagittarius, when it goes into the deep end, this is where we have our crusaders. This is where we have the Pope to the conquistador. Go and save the people, the savages. Convert them to our religion or slay them for their own good. Okay, Pope, I'm on a mission from God. This is where Sagittarius gets a little screwy. We're seeing the holes in our philosophies, in our belief systems, in our personal ontologies that aren't very realistically giving us the tools or the resources to actually improve the situation on this planet. You want to have a democracy where there's actually freedom and equality? That's wonderful. We might have to start with the fact that we don't have that yet. We might have to start with the fact that that's something that we have to actually work to get before we have it. Yeah, we have to know where we are in collective history and not bullshit ourselves that we're further evolved and more matured than we actually are. So there's another very amazing alignment that I think is very interestingly coinciding with this full moon. And that is Uranus conjoined with Eris. Many astrologers have been talking about this. This is a long-term transit going on these months. Uranus is in Aries is the liberator, the releaser of individuals. This is freedom. This is democracy. This is what that's all about. It's about freedom of the individual. to make your own choices, to be your own man, as long as you're not hurting other people. You have that freedom. Okay? Now we have asteroid Ceres. At the moment of this full moon, it's Uranus-Eris, the trans-Plutonian object, and asteroid Ceres, the dwarf planet floating in the asteroid belt, all lined up in Aries. And I think that she, asteroid Ceres, who is the mother goddess, who is Mother Nature, she is giving us this light at the end of the tunnel. It is beneath the awakening and the realizing reality and having to snap out of these fantasies, underneath all of that. And this is not a happy, pleasant awakening. I mean, this is just what awakening is in this day and age. As we awaken in this day and age, it is making ourselves aware of everything. Not just the light and pretty things, but all of the stuff, all of the unresolved. That's what shadow is. It's not Satan. It's what's unresolved, of what needs healing, of what needs to be brought back into the light. And is there anything, soul, person that is not a child of God who does not, by their own divine birthright, deserve to be taken back into the light? No! Everything does get brought back into the light. And that's tricky, because we see things in the shadow that are grotesque, that are ugly, that are, my consciousness was in a difficult position. And I created this escape, or this entity, or this pattern, or this cycle, or this addiction as a coping mechanism for the difficulty that I was not ready to handle yet. And then we got so addicted to the coping mechanism that we identified with it, and we forgot about what's underneath it. Well, this is difficult. Ending these coping mechanisms and getting back into reality and getting into the core healing that actually needs to happen. And we know how this is. We know right now. We're getting it smashed in our faces. We know where we need to go. And it is kind of like we got to do the locomotive, just like, okay, this is spiritual warrior time. Spiritual warrior time doesn't mean that you're blaming others and beheading demons. You're taking ownership of what already goes on within yourself. And as within, so without. You really want to end the darkness in the world? Let's start maybe a little bit smaller. Let's get rid of the pretentiousness, the goody-goodiness, the judgments, the blaming, the scapegoating in ourselves first. Let's becoming loving in ourselves first, of our own nature, of our own lives. And it's not fair, everything that's happened to us. It's not fair. I'm not saying, oh yeah, make this easy. No, this is spiritual warrior stuff. We all got initiated into bullshit somewhere along the line. And that's simply our spiritual work. As we do that work within ourselves, we are liberating ourselves. It becomes easier, it becomes more joyous with time once we go all the way down and we confront reality on the base level, 2 feet on the ground. Hello, reality, wake up. Here we are in time on this planet going on right now. And we're taking down the bullshit, billboards and distractions and TV screens that have just been covering up all the urban decay, the rust, the incapability, the insanity that we've all developed, being addicted to these cultural mindsets that are completely delusional and completely separate from reality. What is the light at the end of the tunnel? Ceres is saying peace, love, real freedom. You want to access your creativity? You want to be a creator in the world? You want to initiate your way? You want to initiate your ideas? You want to initiate this burning love that comes from within you? And you just I wish other people could see how beautiful nature actually is, but we've come so far away. Don't we want to release that into the world? Don't we want to heal and help other peoples and do what feels greatest to us simultaneously by releasing our individual truth? And to feel peaceful? Peaceful is the prerequisite to creativity. The artist can't paint a painting while it's just like, this has to be a painting done right now, it's got to change everybody, I'm the only one to do it. No, it's just what naturally happens when we are at peace and one with our own nature. So seize the day, my friend. Shine the light on all of it. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. It does feel like the scalpel's going in and, This is a purifying time. Do your cleanse. Do your, clearing out the bowels, whatever. And get into this opening that is happening. Clear it out. If we need help, reach out for help. If we need someone to talk to, reach out for somebody to talk to. That's the light at the end of the tunnel. This is when people start to band together, come together. We are in this for each other. This isn't our fraction versus your fraction. This is the peoples. This is the nations. This is humanity. That's what we want to start forming together. It's not my party versus your party, my nation versus your nation. We are the people. We are the species on this planet. And we can, each and every one of us, relate to and empathize with the situations that are sweeping over the globe, each and every one of us. So, this is real productive time. This is a productive time in waking up to what is real and then using this as an opportunity to take back our power. Because it's not us being controlled by ulterior forces on the outside, my friends. That age is over. And that age ends with us recognizing that that age of forces controlling us from the outside was only an age in the first place because it rested fundamentally upon delusion. Convincing ourselves to believe certain things that aren't true, which strips us away from our power and our capability to transform and make change, which we could easily do in the blink of an eye if we knew and came into our actual power as a human being. Things will start to calm down going into the future, yeah. These Saturn Square Neptune times, these are when things have been particularly intense through the last year. This was November and December of 2015. It's going on now, June 2016. There's going to be another third poignant time around September when we have Virgo time, when we have eclipses. And so in between now and September, there is an ebb and flow to everything. The sun is going to move into Cancer the day of our full moon, June 20th, 6 hours after the full moon, the sun moves into Cancer. Venus moves into Cancer tomorrow. So this is what comes next, after all the changes, after all the awakening, the electroshock, waking us up, time to wake up, alarm clock. Well, then comes Cancer, which is the nurturing time. We get back into what actually matters, our beloved ones, our circles, our family, our home, our tribe, our empathy for one another. This is Cancer. Cancer is the needed wisdom of this day and age. That's what immediately follows all this. Is let's get back on track with what humanity actually is. One family, one tribe, only brothers and sisters. No more angels and demons. Brothers and sisters. And so having empathy and compassion for one another, we can cradle one another and cradle ourselves. And no matter what you're feeling as you're feeling it, whether you feel strong, whether you feel enraged, whether you feel defeated, whether you feel depressed, I embrace you and I accept you as my child. For this is unconditional love. And this is the understanding which we are ascending into. Not through skipping and jumping there, through making ourselves aware of the reality that this is all there is and all there ever was. Our brothers and sisters, our fellow human beings. So let us then embrace one another. Embracing is love. Judging and scapegoating is not love. So let us continue this movement of embracing, of coming together in compassion. And when we feel scared and when we feel afraid, let that be the force that brings us together and re-strengthens us by forming the bonds and the centerpieces of love, of family, and of nurturance. And so in that endeavor, I am absolutely wishing you all the best. It is such a pleasure and an honor for me to get in front of you and be a speakerphone for this stuff. And it would be just as much a pleasure and an honor to do so for your own natal chart. What is this life about? What is this unfolding about? Let's look at the transits. How is this stuff affecting me personally? What am I learning? What am I awakening to? And how can this healing journey which is one and the same with the spiritual journey. Awaken me up into greater and greater potentials of who I already am. So much love to you and your beloveds. Namaste.